Check that one out today. No alarm clock needed, my passion wakes me. You know, Einstein said, I got no special talent, I'm just passionately curious. And that's how I feel about training to build muscle and get stronger, which is why I'm able to currently put out more effective and practical and relevant information as it relates to training to build muscle and get stronger than anybody in the fucking world. I can pretty much guarantee that. Nobody's doing this and nobody's doing it for free. Anyways, one of the things I want to talk about is the other day, I was talking about how to modify the way you perform your repetitions to increase the demand on your muscles. But I didn't talk about how to include isometric pauses. The video would have been too long, so I'm going to do that right now. The benefits of including isometric pauses when performing a repetition so that you can make the best decision for yourself on whether or not you want to include it in your strategy designed to, make you stronger, make you bigger, whatever it is that you train for. So when you lift a weight, what happens is you need to impart a certain degree of acceleration onto the resistance to get it in motion. And what happens is you're going to produce a little bit of momentum, and momentum is going to lower the mass to overcome. So I'll give you an example. If you can lift 300 pounds, but you have 200 pounds on the bar, and you apply, let's say, 250 pounds of force to get that resistance in motion, you're going to get it into motion pretty quickly. It's going to travel at, a decent speed. And once it's in motion, the force required to keep it in motion is going to be less than what it was to get it in motion in the first place, because it's going to feel like 150 pounds or 100 pounds. So what can happen when you lift traditionally, it's not going to happen, but it can happen, is your muscles can get lazy at various ranges of motion, and this can contribute to imbalances being developed that will ultimately reveal themselves when you try to either lift really, really heavy or really, really slow, or come to a complete stop and come to a complete pause. So by including an isometric pause, or 2 or 3 or however many you want to throughout your range of motion, for however many times you want to, what you do is you kill momentum completely. It's done. There is no momentum. So you have to overcome inertia for a second or third or fourth time. And the force required to get the weight in motion is greatest. So your muscles are going to be under their highest levels of tension at the beginning of any lift just to get the weight in motion. This is why coming to a complete stop is very, very hard to do. If you ever try to do it, you'd be like, man, that's way harder doing it that way. I'd rather just bounce the weight off my chest and keep it going, or bounce out of the bottom of a squat instead of pausing. Pausing forces the muscles to do more work. And if you want to build muscle, might be something you want to include. So that's one of the benefits. There are other benefits too. I mean, coming to a complete stop is a good teaching tool. You can see if somebody is mechanically positioning themselves to direct as much stress onto the muscle as possible. You can also increase the time under tension at a very specific range of motion. And if you can come to a complete stop, that's indicative that you are in total control of the weight. You can dominate that weight. And if you can dominate that weight, then you can intentionally and deliberately contract your muscles as hard as possible when holding that weight and suspending that weight in space. So you can increase the time under maximal or optimal tension at very specific ranges of motion by including isometric pauses in your lifts. So there's a few other benefits, and I made another whiteboard because a lot of people like the whiteboard. It helps them with their learning. So I'll take you through the benefits of pauses again. Hopefully there's no glare here. Now, number one, you always want to impose the greatest demand possible without overworking your body's capacity to recover, regardless of what you train for. You're going to modify the way you do what you do, but the underlying reason for why you do anything should be to impose a demand. Now, the demand will increase in direct proportion to the amount of weight you lift. The more weight you lift, that is how you authentically increase the demand. But you can't lift heavy all the time. It's not sustainable. If you lift a lighter weight, you can increase the demand artificially through your intent. Now, momentum, when you lift a weight, lowers the mass to overcome, which can hide and contribute to weaknesses, which are only going to be revealed when you try to go really, really heavy, really, really slow, or come to a complete stop, which is not good, because if you have imbalances and you try to do something, lift a really, really heavy weight, you're going to be surprised when you get under that weight and it's like, fuck, I can't do this. There's an imbalance here. So they will always be revealed the more you try to load the body. Now, coming to a complete pause kills momentum and it increases the demand, which you can do at a very specific range depending on where you want to pause. So that's one of the benefits, because if your muscles get lazy at a specific range, you're going to want to increase the demand at that range to correct any imbalances. Coming to a complete stop requires that you overcome inertia more than one time. Generally, this takes place at a very disadvantageous range where momentum would usually lower the demand. So that's the benefit to including isometric pauses. Down here, limits and removes contribution of the stretch reflex, which can contribute to up to 1/3 of the lift. I'll talk about that in a second. And then obviously it's used as a great teaching tool. And then also increase the time under tension. If you want to build muscle, you can increase the time under maximal or optimal tension at a very specific range. So as it relates to the stretch reflex, anyone that's ever done a bench press and they're doing, a bunch of reps and they're kind of bouncing out of the bottom position, and then they'll get a rep where they come down and they bounce and then it kind of stops right here and then they got to kind of push through. Why does that happen? Generally, that happens for one of two reasons. There are two theories that I've come across here. One is that muscle activity remains unchanged, but the contribution of the stretch reflex dissipates after about 1/3 of the range of motion. So you got full muscle activity and the contribution of the stretch reflex. That helps you get to the weight to here. The contribution from the stretch reflex dissipates. Now the muscles have to do all the work to get through. That's why you get to a sticking point, possibly. Another theory would be that muscle activity is going to change. And this makes sense as well, because if a muscle's capacity to produce force is greatest when it's at its mid-range and it's lowest when it's at its extreme ranges, at its longest and its shortest range, as that muscle changes length, the capacity to produce force varies. So what happens is the brain is going to always try to take the path of least resistance, and as it tries to do this, as the muscle's capacity to produce force is varying, you can lose strength in the process of the brain trying to, compute all these different things that are going on at once. So, as it relates to the scope of this video, though, pausing will remove the stretch reflex. You have to overcome inertia again, which means that, force output is going to be maximized to do so. It's when your force output is going to be the greatest. You have to apply the most amount of force to get the weight into motion. Once it's in motion, momentum lowers the mass to overcome. So including isometric pauses during your lifts can be very beneficial, whether you're trying to build muscle or get stronger, depending on how you include them. In fact, powerlifters will generally include isometric pauses in their training because it removes the contribution from the stretch reflex. Because if the stretch reflex is contributing to the lift, are the muscles doing all the work? No. And if the muscles aren't doing all the work, are they going to, reap full benefit? No. So pausing can remove the stretch reflex and increase the demand placed on the muscles. So those are the benefits. If you like the information, feel free to share it. Do for others as I've done for you. Pass this information forward. It's free. The internet makes it very, very simple to do so. If you know someone that would benefit from it, share this with them. Why wouldn't you? If you like the information, click the fucking button at the bottom, subscribe to the channel, and I will continue to bring it for free for you.